Guys, welcome to the first topic of this training program, Introduction to Android. In this session, what we are going to cover is what is Android, what are the various fundamentals of Android, and what are the various concepts which is related to Android applications. So what is Android? See, Android is basically an open source operating system provided by Google. In fact, this operating system was actually developed by a company called Android Inc. and Google have later on bought that company up. So you can also think it of developing a mobile platform or a mobile operating system, and then later on your company might be bought by Microsoft, BlackBerry or Google. You can think it of, isn't it? Okay. So coming to the course. So basically Android is an operating system. Okay, and then this operating system was actually developed so that it can run on portable devices like phones, tablets and even televisions. So whatever applications you are actually developing, this can actually run on tablets, phones as well as on televisions. So Google provides actually each and everything which is required to develop these applications. Whether it's a framework or whether it's a platform to distribute your application. You must have used Google Play, isn't it? So Google Play is where you go and download all your mobile applications so that you can use them. Right? So Android is an operating system, and Android is a major player. In fact, they are the leaders in mobile phone market. Why it is important to know? Because see, if a company is a market leader, it means the application which is based upon that operating system are more in demand. So if applications are more in demand, it means the developers of that applications will be in demand. So that's why learning an Android will actually help you out to get better job opportunities. Now there are various versions in Android. So to give you an example, you must be using Windows. All of us are using it. In fact, might be 90% or 99% of people who are taking up this course must be using Windows as a operating system for their desktop and laptops, isn't it? And Windows are actually released in so many versions, and each version comes up with new features and look and feel, isn't it? Though most of time it crashes like anything. Right? I started working on Windows 3.1, and then later on there are so many versions which are released. Recently, in recent 5 or 10 years, there's XP and then Vista, then Windows 7 and right now Windows 8. So likewise, we have Android versions. They started up with Cupcake, and then right now the version which is running is Ice Cream Sandwich. And most Android devices on Android mobile phones are right now using Gingerbread as a Android version. Now there is also one important concept to know here is API levels. Right now the API level is 15. It means that, see, you will be using Android API to develop the applications, isn't it? So whenever you are going to develop a particular application, you will be using Android API to develop that application. Now each API actually comes with an improvement. So every version, so they've moved from version 3 to version 4, they must have fixed few bugs, they must have introduced more features like that. Okay, we'll be exploring more about APIs in the coming session. Now what are the various fundamentals of Android? See, first of all, the Android applications are written in Java programming language. That's it. Straight. Okay, and then these applications are actually packaged in a single file with an extension called APK. And then this APK file is actually gets installed in the Android device. In the same way, you must have developed or heard about developing a Java application. Now the Java application you develop, If you have to distribute it, you use .jar files. And if you are developing a web application, I'm talking about the Java ecosystem, you pack all those your web application modules in a file called var. Or if you are developing an enterprise application, you pack it up in a EAR. Likewise, if you have developed an Android application, you pack it up in a file with an extension called .apk. Now, Android OS is basically a multi-user Linux system where each application acts as a different user. Okay, and then each application actually runs in a separate process, or it's in own process. You must have gone through the operating system concepts. Now, in operating system, whether it is Linux or whether it is Windows, each application runs in a different process or as a process, isn't it? So whenever you start a particular application, Android starts that process. Okay, so that the components which are there in that application can get executed. And each process basically runs in its own virtual machine. Okay, so that app code runs in isolation from another application. Why they have architected in this way? They have Android architecture. They have Android architect in this way because they can enhance the security of the Android environment. That's why each application runs in a separate process and has its own virtual machine, so that data cannot be shared. If data cannot be shared, it will of course increase the security of the application. Now let's talk about the layers in an Android. So the bottom most layer contains hardware devices and specific capabilities such as GPS, camera and Bluetooth. On top of it, the layer contains device driver and Linux kernel. The intermediate layer actually contains the libraries like database library, graphic library and media library. And it contains the Java virtual machine, or normally called as Android runtime. On top of it, we have application manager, which actually manages these applications. And the uppermost layer where we are concerned about contains all your applications that you will be developing or already comes up when you bought a particular Android phone, like contacts, phone, browser. But from the developer perspective, think it of Android as a Java environment where you will be writing up the code in Java. That's all. Now, what are the various concepts in Android? I'll quickly go through with them because we are going to cover each and every topic or point mentioned here in detail. Okay. So, what is a view? View basically refers to a UI widget like button or text input. Okay. And what is a view group? View group is basically tells API that this is how the view or the various UI widgets should be arranged. UI widgets like buttons or text boxes, whether it's in a form layout or a grid layout like that. Then there is an activity. Activity corresponds to a single UI. You can correlate it to a single HTML page or a JSP page or an ASPX page. Okay, and then there are content providers. So whenever your application needs to expose the data which will be used by another applications running in Android environment, you will be using content providers. And the last concept here is intent. Intent basically used whenever your application needs to communicate within other components in your within your application. Likewise, you have to move from one activity to another activity or one page to another page. So you make use of intent. Likewise, if you are developing applications in JSPs, you make use of send redirect function. Likewise, you use intents here to move from one activity to another activity. Just an example. Okay. Now, if you have any doubts, you can put up in the discussion forum. Please don't feel shy. Nobody is standing in front of you. There are no friends out there standing that they feel that, "Oh, why this guy is asking up the question." Second important point is, if you put up your point, I'll answer it, and that might be answered by your peers. So it actually helps you to improve your comm skills and ability to ask the question. And you might find new friends there. Okay, so see you in discussion forums.